First of all, I do apologize if you hear any boom boom sounds. There's going to be like text messages, instant messages, from Facebook Messenger, Instagram, you name it, Twitter. As well as if you hear a big boom, that's going to be from my bank declining something. Hopefully I don't have to worry about that after tomorrow. But I wanted to come on here, though, and I wanted to talk about AEW All in Texas. Now, I didn't see the show because financially I can't afford to do so right now. But I did look at the highlights online. I did look at the highlights through various AEW social media and fans, capturing certain scenes or certain moments and posting them online. As well as I did hear what the likes of JD from NY206 and Chi-Town Mark, Heel Jesse, and others had to say about it. And the consensus basically is it was probably one of the better wrestling shows all year. Pretty much outdid WrestleMania, probably at least WrestleMania Night 2, or at least all of Night 1 and the main event of Night 2. Pretty much a lot of people feel that Night 1 of WrestleMania this year and the main event of Night 2 pretty much got outshined by All in Texas. So there's that consensus. But there was also a bit of an agreement that some matches just didn't really belong on the show. Some didn't. Some did, some didn't. But what are you going to do? And I do agree that some of these matches could have been saved for, special editions of Dynamite, special editions of Collision. But if you're going to keep them around, like let's say the Casino Battle Royal, both the men's and the women's, was looked at as not good, cluster you-know-whats. And the consensus was they were better off being, better, that the show, I'm trying to say, would have been better off with them not on it. However, I do have to disagree. Because even though AEW is trying to regain momentum, and it looks like this show kind of gave it that, that push, gave it that push to regaining that momentum, I will say this. I would keep the Casino Gauntlet Battle Royals as an all-in exclusive for both the men and the women. But the way I would change them up is I would have the first 5 to 10 slots, not the first 2, the first 5 to 10 slots up for grabs and matches, fatal 4-ways, triple threats, one-on-one, tag team, you name it. And then I would, after getting those first 5 to 10 officially in, the winners of those matches officially in, and I should say as 1 through 5 or 1 through 10. After that, I would then announce, what the number of participants will be in each match. So let's say I have 5 people qualify for the first 5 slots. Then guess what? I announce who the next, 15 are going to, not announce who the next 15 are going to be, but I announce, how many people are going to be in the Battle Royal. Like I said, basically I get the first 5 qualified in, then I say, okay, 15 others are going to join them. And then that's it. I don't say who the 15 are going to be, but I say 15 others are going to join them. Or if I get the first 10 qualified, I said, okay, here are the first 10 that qualified, and they're going to join 10 other people, and there you go. That's what I would do. I would have, like I say, the first 5 to 10 slots up for grabs, not the first 2. The other change I would make for this Battle Royal is not only would I do that, but I would also, as well as announce how many participants there's actually going to be. But what I will do is I will switch it up to where the Battle Royal, or the Gauntlet Battle Royal portion of it, doesn't start until all the participants are in. That's right. That's when it would begin. Now, I know that might sound confusing because that's not what a gauntlet is. A gauntlet is basically beating, somebody before another person comes out to win the match. I get that. But you can still have that. You can still have that rule, even when you include everybody else. Because all you have to do is be the first one to pin, somebody or make them submit to win. So to me, I look at the fact that I would keep, keep that rule of first pinfall or submission or whatever, maybe elimination you throw in there, but first pinfall or submission wins the match. That's what I would do. Because because what you're doing is you're wrestling all these people, waiting for the next person to show up. You're trying to beat them before that next person shows up. It's not giving everybody an opportunity, and you get people upset. This is why AEW sometimes has a locker room of stars, of superstars that don't feel like the locker room, it's very cohesive. It's very, together, because of match types like this. So to me, like I said, I would switch it up to where, the first 5 or 10 slots are up for grabs, get those out of the way, announce, how many more people are going to be joining them, which could be 10 more, 20 more, and then add the rule that the pinfall and submission part doesn't start until all 20 or 30 participants are in. And then whoever gets the first pinfall by pinfall submission in the match is the one that wins. That's how I would do it. Because that's kind of a gauntlet, because let's say you're an MJF who won, and you're seeing, let's say, a Mystico. Let's say you're seeing Mystico, I should say, trying to pin Mark Briscoe. You want to push him out of the way. But then you go over to the other, you look over to the other side of the ring, you're like, oh, there's Kyle Fletcher. He's about to pin Adam Page. You'll get on him. You're basically working and trying to find the opportunity. Hold on for a sec, guys. Hold on. Sorry about that, but like I said, it makes it more interesting because you're trying to avoid all these other participants, all these other, let's say, 19, 29 people from getting a pinfall or win while everybody else is distracted. It makes it more intriguing. Yeah, it might seem like it's a cluster you-know-what, but it makes it more intriguing because, in a sense, you're kind of running the gauntlet because you're going all over trying to prevent things from happening. It makes it more intriguing because then, out of the blue, you won't know who wins until it happens. You'll probably get it focused on, the pinfall or submission focused on, and then that's when it happens. So to me, going that route might make it work better. It might make it work better. Or you could keep it the way they want. But maybe you add in the stipulation that the gauntlet part is you have to beat you have to beat the 5 or 10 others, or not 5 or 10, but the other, let's say, the other 3 to 8 that have qualified, you have to beat them in a row before you win. And if you don't, and you get pinned or submitted, you're eliminated, and then it just starts over. Then it goes back to whoever gets the first 5 or 10 pinfalls, or first 5 pinfalls, actually, put it that way, then it works. There you go. So I would do that for both the men and the women. But if they don't want to, that's fine. However, I would make it, if they want to keep it as a staple of this, of the show, then I would basically, have only those that you're focusing on be the primary players. Like if you're focusing on certain individuals, between AEW and ROH, I would focus on them being in the Battle Royal. That's what I would do. And then let's take a look at the triple main event. All the matches apparently delivered. Some would say the women's match kind of started off slow, but it delivered. Here's what I would do with the women's match. Or here's how I would have done it. I do agree that one of these, at least the first two, either the unified or the women's world title match, should have kicked off the show. And then in the middle, you slot the other one. So Okada and Omega, good match from what I understand. Not as good as what they used to have, but decent. I would have had that kick off the show. Then I would have had Mercedes and Tony in the middle, and then you can have everything else in between. And then after that, you could have the world title match close out the show. That's what you can do. So I do admit that they could have structured it better to where the triple main event could have been the first of the 3 starts out, the second of the 3 is in the middle, and the last one closes out the show. I do agree they could have done that. Now, as far as the tag team match, with Swerve and Ospreay against the Bucks, I'll admit that was a good match. Probably one of the best Bucks matches in a while. But I do agree that it should have been more story emphasized. And it was. It did have story, but more story emphasized on the fact that, you have the Bucks desperate to cling on to the power. You have them go and pull an old school, trope that, people like them have always been known to do while they still have that power. Change the rules. And you show their desperation. You have Matt or Nick come out and say, no, that didn't count. Or not didn't count, but, no, wait. Change the plans. We're still EVP, so we're going to make this now a no disqualification match. And then you can have them bring out whoever they need to help them win, or at least try to win. And stuff like that. Make it more interesting. Instead of just straight up, okay, they lose. Make it more interesting. That's what you do. That's what you do. Now, the intriguing part about this, though, afterwards, is it seems Ospreay and Swerve are EVPs themselves. So, does that mean Swerve will use his power to get a shot at Hangman? We'll see. Or we'll both do it? We'll see. But it's good. But the point I'm getting at, though, is they could have made it more interesting storyline-wise by showing how desperate the Bucks were to, retain their power and everything, and by changing the rules during the match. Like if they know they're about to lose, switch it up to where they try to get the advantage and so on. And, just go from there. Now, a lot of people did expect the Bucks to win because it would have been interesting storyline-wise to see how they get from where they would put Swerve and, Ospreay to, where they would get to them a year later. But I think they did this for a reason, because if they're going to do what people think they're going to do, that will make things interesting. And maybe from a storyline perspective, Ospreay and Swerve will lose those EVP titles back to the Bucks, but in an understanding way to where they get it now, that the Bucks, that it doesn't matter who would have this power, everybody's going to use it for their own advantage. So that could be an intriguing situation there. But like I said, they could have made it more interesting to where you have the Bucks changing the rules on the fly to try to, win the match. Like they could have had certain moves banned and and stuff like that. But what do I know? Now, the main event, obviously, a lot of people felt like, Hangman wasn't going to win, but obviously they're in Texas, he was going to. And a lot of people felt like it, it took, certain samples, certain inspiration from the WrestleMania 49 2 main event between Rhodes and Reigns. And it did, to an extent. But here's the thing. A lot of people feel like this is the end of the Death Riders. It's not. It's not the end of the Death Riders. I'm telling you why. And I'll tell you why, I should say. I'll tell you why it's not the end of the Death Riders. Because you have Darby that's going to get into a feud with Moxley. It's going to be one of the reasons he lost, or be blamed as one of the reasons he lost. And then you're going to have, and then if not that, you're going to have Mox wanting to get into it with Swerve. And maybe you have Mox challenge Swerve, maybe Ospreay, but mostly Swerve, for his EVP status if he and Ospreay don't give that up and let, Tony Khan name someone new, or some other people, in that position, outside of them. I could see Mox wanting to challenge Swerve for the EVP status, so that way if he becomes EVP, he can, just get the championship back. Get himself another match, get the championship back just like that. So there are interesting aspects there. But the Death Riders situation, that faction, it ain't over. It ain't over, period. And I'll tell you why. Because you wouldn't have had them look strong, even in defeat, doing that six-man tag. You wouldn't have had them look weak and all that. Oh, not weak, but you wouldn't have had them look strong, during that. So to me, it's not done. And don't be surprised if if, as I said earlier, if they don't give up their EVP status to Tony Khan and let him, name some other people to take charge, then don't be surprised if Mox and maybe the Death Riders challenge him, to a tag match or some kind of match, to where they, have to put the EVP status on the line, and if they win, Mox, storyline-wise, could use his power to get the championship back. But we'll see. We shall see. But it looks like right now, the priority is going to be Darby Allin. Take him out. So take him out of the picture, then get back to the world title. We shall see. We shall see. But things, I will admit there are things that were intriguing about it. I mean, the three-way tag team title match, yeah, a lot of people felt like that could have been a match you could have saved for a special edition of Dynamite or Collision, and that's true. But they did it for a reason, because of the return of Adam Copeland, a.k.a. Edge, to the aid of Christian, and teasing the Christian Cope reunion at All Out in Toronto. That's the only reason they did it. Now, why? Now, the question's going to be, obviously, why? What's going on? And how this all come about? And it's probably going to be about, and obviously we saw Mama Rain, if you will, laughing at what was happening to Christian. So obviously we'll find out that maybe she was behind it and she cut a deal with Stokely and FTR. So we'll see what happens. And what's interesting? I was just thinking about this earlier today. What if we find out that maybe Mama Wayne, had Nick Wayne when she was underage? What if they have Christian and Edge bring that up? Because that would be interesting to fuel the fire in this particular situation. Because outside of FTR, that Copeland and Christian are going to want to get their hands on Nick Wayne, Kip Sabian, and the former Patriarchy. What if we find out during this that Mama Wayne had Nick when she was young, underage, and that maybe secretly she's been having a incestual affair with him, and we just don't know about it yet? What if that gets brought up? Because that could make things interesting, to where, one, you're in story humiliating and exposing Mama Wayne for being nothing more than, how do we put it, a streetwalker, put it plainly, and someone that is basically, in a way, about the forbidden. And ironically, we'd be heading towards Forbidden Door if this happened. So I would not be surprised if they do something like this, because this is AEW. They will push boundaries more so than WWE. But overall, yeah, AEW All in Texas wasn't a perfect show. Others will say it was, but it wasn't a perfect show. Did it outdo WrestleMania this year? Some would say it did. Some would say it did outdo WrestleMania overall, while others would say it outdid Night 1's undercard and Night 2's main event combined. Well, basically it was on par with the rest of the show. But, all I can say is AEW and Tony Khan, they need to keep this momentum up going into Wednesday, building towards Forbidden Door, building towards All Out Toronto. They need to keep the momentum. Can they do it? Don't know. I mean, they've proven they can, but then they drop off. Will they be able to keep this momentum going into Dynamite on Wednesday and Collision this Saturday? We shall see. But let me know what your guys' thoughts were on, were on AEW All in Texas. Do you think overall, with the exception of a few matches and everything here and there that could have been safe for Dynamite and Collision, do you think it overall delivered? What were your thoughts? How did you feel about it? How did you feel about the fact that it became the longest pay-per-view show in AEW history, if not in this decade? Yeah, in this decade. At 7 hours. What were your thoughts on that? And do you think they got the momentum, to keep going strong? Or do you think they're going to drop off? What are your thoughts? And how do you feel about some of the things I suggested about how they could fix the Casino Gauntlet Battle Royal to keep it as a staple of All In? What are your thoughts on that? As well as where do you think they're going to be going next with Hangman Adam Page as champion with the Death Rider storyline. What are your thoughts overall on what I've had to say here? Give me your replies in the comments in the comment section as well as during the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Also, click on the links in the description, guys, to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the link on the Teespring store at the bottom to find merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, give me your thoughts overall, and until next time, I am out.